The treacherous Kahi. An roar of excitement settled upon the island of the people as they prepared for a great celebration. The men had gone fishing and hunting, some of the women and children were gathering shellfish down in the rock pools, and the others had gone to the forest to collect fruits and berries. Huge holes had been dug in the ground to receive the large quantities of food. Tinuru had decided that special ceremonies would accompany the celebration, which was in honor of his son. A priest was necessary, so a canoe had been sent to the neighboring island to fetch the famous priest whose name was Kahi. Kahi was very pleased to come to the island. When he arrived, all the preparations had been made and all of the people were assembled. The ceremonies were dutifully performed, then it was time for the magnificent feast. Everything was laid out before Kahi, and Tinuru was so pleased with the manner in which the ceremonies had been conducted that he decided he would do something very special for Kahi. He walked to the seashore and whistled long and low. Everyone was stilled. Kahi wondered what Tinuru was doing. Then a speck appeared on the horizon. It grew larger and larger. Then through the waves ploughed Tutu, and he came straight to Tinuru. The chief patted and stroked the whale, then took a slice of meat from his side. Tutu did not mind this at all. The meat was cooked and given to the priest Kahi. Kahi had never before eaten whale meat, and he found it delicious. Silently he wished that the whale belonged to him. After the feast there was dancing and a whole heap of fun, into the long night. Then it was time for Kahi to return home. A canoe was made ready for Kahi, but he would not climb aboard. Then another canoe was made ready for Kahi, but he still refused to board it. Tinuru was upset, for he did not wish to displease the priest. "Please tell me what makes you unhappy," he said to Kahi. "I'm not unhappy," said Kahi. "You have treated me very well, but I would very much like to ride home on your magnificent whale." "But of course," said Tinuru. He walked again to the seashore and whistled. Straightway Tutu came ploughing through the waves. Tinuru helped Kahi onto the animal's back and said to him, "When the whale reaches your island, he will stop and shake himself. That is when you must get off." Kahi nodded with a rueful smile. "Go," said Tinuru to the whale. "Take the priest to his home." Tutu flicked his tail and swam away. It was not long before he reached Kahi's island and stopped and shook himself. But Kahi dug his heels into Tutu's side and urged him on. Tutu obeyed. A little nearer the shore he stopped again and shook himself. But Kahi urged him still further on. But by now Tutu had gone too far and was now caught in the sand. The tide was ebbing, he could not move. His ear holes became clogged with sand, and soon he could not breathe, and the poor Tutu died. The treacherous Kahi laughed with glee. He sent his people at once to prepare the cooking fires, for they would feast on Tinuru's whale tonight. Meanwhile, Tinuru was walking up and down the beach on his island, waiting for Tutu to come back. He had called many times, but nothing except the gentle breeze answered him. Tinuru wondered why the whale had not returned. Perhaps he is ill, he thought, or perhaps he has been trapped. Then a curious smell wafted in with the breeze. Tinuru sniffed and sniffed again. At once he flew into a rage. "So," he bellowed, "so, the treacherous Kahi has killed my whale. He is feasting on it. What treachery!" Back in the village, Tinuru gathered his men around him. "This evil deed shall be revenged," he cried. "Let us decide how we shall repay the murderous Kahi." But nobody could think of a suitable plan. At last Tinuru's sister came forward and said, "Let us, the womenfolk, fetch Kahi and bring him here." She described her plan to the men, and they all agreed it was a good plan. A canoe was prepared and filled with gifts, and in it the group of women set off for the island of Kahi. As they bent over the paddles, cause of luck floated to them over the calm sea. Within a short space of time the canoe beached upon foreign sands, and Kahi's people came to greet them alightingly. The gifts were offered, as was custom, and news was exchanged with old acquaintances. That evening was the evening that followed was marked by feasting, dancing, and singing, in which all took part. Nobody had cause for suspicion. Only the guilty Kahi felt uneasy at the visit of the woman from the island. It was now very late, and the people began to droop. One by one they rolled over to sleep. Everyone, that is, except Kahi and Tinaru's sister. She pretended to sleep, but kept a watchful eye on the priest. The cunning priest was watchful too. The group of women looked harmless, but he was not going to take any risks. So long into the night he stayed awake. He was feeling very drowsy, however, so he decided to sleep while pretending to still be awake. He placed a piece of shiny pearl shell over each eye. In the dark, the shells glistened like wide open eyes. Nobody would have guessed that the priest was asleep. Nobody except Tinaru's clever sister. When the whole house was drugged with sleep, she wakened her friends, and together they carried the sleeping Kahi to the canoe, taking care not to wake him. Not a sound was made. Swiftly the woman paddled home. The sleeping Kahi was carried up the beach and into the sleeping house. He was placed, still asleep, by the front centre post where he had laid in his own house. When the rays of rising sun peeped through the window next morning, Kahi woke up. He had dreamed all night about another whale meat feast, and remembering that there was still some meat remaining, he sat up eagerly and called to his slaves, "Bring me water and bring me more whale meat." But nobody heeded his call. "Where are you, you lazy slaves?" he shouted. Still nobody answered. A dark shadow moved towards him. It was Tinaru, and Kahi knew him at once. "And what brings Tinaru to my house?" he demanded angrily. "Your house," Tinaru said. "Look about you, treacherous one." Kay stared about him, but perceived no familiar object. Beyond a sea of angry faces, he saw that of Tinaru's sister, and he realized that he had been outwitted. He bounded to his feet and made a rush for the door, but his way was barred by a vengeful people. There was no escape for the treacherous Kahi. Cheers everyone, please support our local craftspeople and producers as much as you can, and have a good one.